This is the Loose Pass Rugby Podcast, only on Megafoon Rugby.
Welcome back to the Loose Pass Rugby Podcast. Our rugby podcast about nothing last week went quite well. And then, of course, you people are wanting to know: are you okay? Have you recovered from your rant, your emotional outburst on Sunday? Because you took us all by surprise, not least of all me.
I'd pretty much recovered. Yes, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Yes, I pretty much by the time I got to the end of it, I got it out of my system. If you watch the end of the podcast, I'm smiling again. Still, what I was really I was pre-annoyed, really, as much as I was post-annoyed. I was annoyed about the game, but I was also really hurtful. I know people like it when I say that word, about how, I thought that people were going to try and spin that Wales performance in a false way. People were going to gaslight people. People were going to tell lies, and it hasn't happened that much. There's still very much certain players being protected by certain people, which drives me up the wall. But so I think from next time I talk about Wales, I'm going to be a bit more honest. I'm not going to do it now because I've done the game review for the England game, so I'm not just going to go over old ground. But from now on, I am going to name players who I think are a problem, who aren't getting criticised anywhere because they wear a certain club jersey, or used to wear one in some cases.
You're talking about Welsh players specifically now, I suppose.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to ask you this. I had a bit of a thinking period for a while. You know, you go into these little things where you sort of do introspection and likes. And I know I wasn't too kind on the Bulls, for example, especially when we heard the stories about the Springboks coming to help them. I'm not an emotional kind of guy. I think I did a pretty good job of talking about that, but I sometimes feel quite bad. You know, I'm worried that I might, be ruining relationships. It's a small industry, this, if you start screwing up your relationships and you don't get the invite anymore, and people look at you as what's the word, askew or askance, or what, I can't remember what the word is. The point is, you don't want to ruin relationships, but you also have to be honest. You have to say what's really going on there. We're not a fan podcast. We're a rugby podcast. We have to talk about things objectively. Do you feel that sometimes that maybe I shouldn't say something, but then you do it anyway?
It depends what the team is. When it comes to Team Wales, there's no relationship to be ruined. It's
ruined already.
Yeah, it was ruined a long time ago. With, say, for the Scarlets, so I do a Scarlets weekly podcast, and there is absolutely a relationship there. I know for a fact, because I've spoken to them, that some of the players listen to the pod, or at least seen bits of it. I know that people in the upper management of the club are aware of us and have occasionally listened, and I've semi-regularly speak to people who work at the club. So you have to be absolutely careful. But the thing that you always just have to fall back on is what you're saying true? As long as you're not attacking anybody on a personal level, as long as you're only talking about what they do on the rugby pitch, you're not saying, this guy's lazy, this guy's a fraud, this guy, he's not putting his full effort in, I think he's a bad person. As long as you're not saying anything like that, as long as you're saying, look, in this game, he played badly. If you compare his stats to this guy's stats, they're nowhere near as good. And I don't understand what they're trying to do. And, the coach can be a difficult one. You can say, with the coach, you back them, and it's important to give credit. That's always the thing. I think it's, if you slate someone or you criticize someone or critique someone or whatever word you want to use, if then in 2 games' time they play really, really well, you have to go, hey, we hammered this guy 2 weeks ago. In this game, he's put on a great performance. So as long as you've balanced, and it does challenge you, and when you're in a position of, I don't know if responsibility is the right word, but when you're in, that there are potentially consequences for something that you're saying, you're not just shooting from the hip amongst friends. You are genuinely saying something that might be heard from someone. It does make you challenge yourself and go, is what I'm saying definitely right and fair? Can I back it up with evidence? And 2 weeks down the line, am I treating all these players fairly? I always used to get this with a certain player who used to play for the Scarlets. I might as well name him, Johan Lloyd. He came to the Scarlets from Bristol as a utility. He was a utility back at Bristol, which Scarlets tried to play him as a 10, and it didn't work at all. And he actually played on the wing for Cardiff. Last time he played for Cardiff, he's gone to Cardiff now. And I was always challenging myself because I found myself criticizing him quite a lot. And I was like, am I just hammering this guy. Like, what would I think? What would I want this guy to think if he listens to the podcast? On the one hand, I need to be honest because the vast majority of the people who listen to the podcast are not Scarlets players; they are Scarlets fans. So I've got to, reflect what the feeling is amongst the fan base to some extent. I've got to give my own opinion. I'm not going to give a fake opinion based on what everybody else thinks, but I've also got to, I'm primarily for the fans. But at the same time, I've got to always challenge myself, like, am I just bullying this guy really, or am I being fair? And so I always tried to make sure that if he played well, I'd say, look, he played well in this game, and we wouldn't have scored this try if he hadn't been on the pitch, etc., etc. So yes, it is very difficult, and you do I think we've both learned doing this for a couple of years now that you can be surprised of who watches and who finds out. So yeah, so you do, but I think so it all comes back down to, so long as you don't attack them personally, you only criticize their rugby, and as long as you're honest, so long as you don't tell lies, so long as you can back up with what you're saying with evidence. People can disagree with you, but you can go, hey, okay, fine, you disagree.
Yeah, but I agree with that. No, like I said, with that thing with the Springboks, afterwards I felt maybe I should have been a little bit more circumspect. But the point is, I said what I thought was true, and I still think it's true. And it was because Johan was a bit unhappy about the way the press reacted, but it was because they didn't say anything. So when you create a vacuum, don't be surprised if something fills the vacuum. That's what I was saying in that specific podcast that I did.
The thing is with these relationships, especially with clubs that we support, me and the Scarlets, you and the Bulls, we're not going anywhere. I'm going to support the Scarlets forever. You're going to support the Bulls forever. So it's important for them to hear, even if they don't like it, it's important for them to know, look, vast swathes of our fan base really don't like this thing that we've done. So it's important for them to know that. And fortunately, the Scarlets have been, in recent times, pretty good with us. I have known other clubs where you say you criticize something, and I knew should I just tell this story? Yeah, I might as well.
Yeah, go for it, whatever it is.
So there was a game where the Ospreys, it was actually against the Scarlets, ironically. During the week, they said, "Oh, we're on track to sell 10,000 tickets for our Scarlets game," and they were hyping up 10,000. We're going to get 10,000 there. And then as it got closer and closer to get the game, that hype died away and died away and died away. And then the official attendance was announced, and it was 9,000. And I knew a guy on a podcast who went on the podcast and said, hey, you said all week that you were going to get 10,000, and then you didn't, and you've actually missed it by quite a long way. That's quite disingenuous, and that's not the way that you should be marketing and things. That's taking people for fools, really. And he got an email from the Ospreys saying, we don't like what you said. We're not going to work with you. We're not going to give people to you to interview anymore, and things like that. So you would be surprised by how thin-skinned people can be in this very, very small community.
Yeah. And
I think it's a bigger problem that a club has taken that stance and been that hardline. If you look at the PR that the Ospreys have at the moment, it's really, really, really bad. That's a way worse crime than him criticizing them. If they just sent an email saying, we don't like what you did, the reason that we hype it like this is like this, this is our reasons behind it. We do what we do, and that's just how we operate. He would have had to go, okay, they've said what they've said. I'm just going to have to take it. We disagree. We're going to have to agree to disagree. But they didn't do that. And I honestly, I don't think anything that my friend and colleague said was wrong. So this is what I'm coming back to, of as long as it's factually true, or, opinions ever be true, but, honest, then really people should never really get that upset about it. If you're saying things that are provably false and hurting people with what you're saying, then that's not okay.
Yeah.
But as long as you're being truthful, at least to yourself, then I don't think that people should ever really, these big organizations should have a thicker skin about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. My incident, you remember famously, is I woke up with my bedside table on fire, with Jake calling me. That was probably the most stressful day of my entire existence. But anyway, and again, I want to give a shout out to Lunga, the previous Bulls media guy who just sort of handled that masterfully. So yeah, anyway, so Harry
But
went to Munster.
Jake likes you now, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's a give and take now. I think Jake got upset with me because that game against Saracens two seasons ago, Champions Cup game, where they played in that bad wind, I don't remember, where they kicked the ball and the ball went backwards, that game.
Yeah.
And the posts were sort of almost horizontal. And I spoke to Andre Pretorius before the press conference, and he gave me a bit of a coaching session. And I asked Jake about, the way the Bulls played. Was it a stupid game plan? I didn't say stupid, but it wasn't the wrong game plan. And he said, MV, let me teach you a rugby lesson. Anyway, we digress. That was quite a funny one. Anyway, I want to say happy that you are back on even emotional keel. It's always good. I love the passion. I loved it. I mean, I was like that. Do you remember the game against the Bristol Bears? You prodded and poked me until I agreed to do the...
Yeah, but you didn't say anything. You didn't have your rant moment. You got me to talk for you.
Yeah, I know, but because you're the better rugby brain than I am. I'm the big picture guy.
When it comes to the Bulls, I'm not. You know more about the Bulls than I do.
I know about the players, and which I'll talk about a bit later. I've got some inside information about Bulls players moving. Some very, very high-level inside information. It was announced or rumored this weekend, by the way, but I've got it now from the horse's mouth. What's going to happen to David Creel? We'll talk about that a bit later. So, on that subject, Harry and I spoke to Franco Smith the other day. We'll publish that on Thursday as well. Probably one of the most insightful interviews I've ever done. From any point of view you can possibly imagine. Yeah, that was a good one. So look out for that one. But before we start talking about the Six Nations, we have a Biltong section, a Biltong segment that we're building in. And we have no calls, no people beating down our doors no Biltong sponsors have popped out of the woodwork yet. But I mean, if we keep going, maybe we'll get lucky. What are you doing this weekend?
Yeah, so in lieu of an actual Biltong sponsor, we're just breaking it until we make it. So this is my second packet of Hunter's Biltong. This is original flavor. So I don't expect this to be as nice as the garlic flavor that I had. I will say that in between eating the Biltongs, I have caved to my cravings, and I've been eating the jerky in between. And I had a barbecue jerky on Friday night. I had a couple of beers and I ate the barbecue jerky, and I enjoyed it very much. So this is original flavor. Yeah, this smells a lot like the other Biltong that I had. Honestly, it's not as aromatic, and it's not as
the garlic one you had last time.
Yeah, the garlic one. I don't think I'm going to like this one as much. It's okay. It's bland. It tastes like the other one I had. It tastes like that from another brand. It tastes like it's not been flavored, honestly. Now I'm sure this is probably, if not some South Africans were to eat this, they would say, yeah, that's Biltong. But it's eating this kind of flavor Biltong that makes me think Biltong should be flavored with something like garlic.
No, I like Biltong with a bit of pepper, or there must be something to it. I don't just like eat dried meat. That's a bit much. I like Biltong. Obviously, I'm South African, but I like a bit of flavor. The one thing I don't like, that I said last week that many South Africans like, is that piece of fat on the side of the Biltong. That's a heart attack waiting to happen. I
went on their website to see what my buying options are for if I want some more, because I don't want a 12 gift box like I got this time. And you can specify with Hunter's Biltong, which we are not being paid to advertise yet, that you can specify thick, medium, or thin slices, and you can select with fat or without fat.
Yeah. I can't eat fat. I'm telling you now. I know that's sacrilege when it comes to South Africans. We love our fat, but not me. I always, when I have it sliced, I cut off the fat for me. Thank you very much. But I have to charge you for that. So they weigh it before they cut it with the fat on. What? Yeah, and then they cut the fat off and then they slice it for you.
That's ridiculous.
I'm telling you.
Come on, honestly, I heard about the crime rates in South Africa. I didn't realize it was quite that bad.
Yeah, in the butcheries, it's quite bad, I must be honest. It's paid out robbery. Biltong is expensive
Anyway.
in South Africa. Yeah. Anyway, we digress. We have to talk about rugby, man. Come on, let's do
Now,
it.
quickly before I do, I'm going to send you some clips after this, whilst we're in this little interlude. Because I said, you remember when I was on doing the Wales review, I said my studio was under
Oh,
construction.
yes.
Well, it's now done. Now, you probably can't notice much difference behind me that you can actually see. But over here, which you can't see, I have a new storage solution for my rugby jerseys. And using the magic of editing, I'm going to send you some clips that you can overlay here to the side of me, where we can see what I've built. And it's a special wardrobe just for my rugby jerseys. And on a members only video over on my channel, you'll be able to see me constructing it at the weekend, which I told Envir that I was doing. And I said that I'd bought some flat pack furniture to turn into it. And Envir emasculated me brutally by saying, "Oh, I would have built it with wood from my garden, blue." You know, that kind of thing.
What's that accent that you're imitating there? Are you making fun of my Afrikaans accent? Are you jealous of my Afrikaans accent? Come on, man. Imitation is a sincerest form of flattery.
It's a very masculine accent, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, right now. Good recovery. Yes, you almost ruined this friendship. Jeez. No, I know I sound very Afrikaans. And we record this at night, and typically, the later in the day I get, the more tired I get, the more Afrikaans I sound. So there we go. Anyway, normally my English would desert me towards the end of this podcast, which is quite late in our time. Anyway, let's talk about... No, man,
this
yes.
Biltong is thinner than the other one that I had. The other one was quite, not thick, but it was quite chunky, whereas this one's more flaky.
I don't like it too thin. I like it quite chunky. Not too chunky, but a little sort of in between. I like that.
I think I prefer Biltong to jerky. Jerky's a little bit too...
I don't know what
like
jerky
cubes.
is. I know it's an American thing, but I can't say that I've
It's just
ever
thicker.
tasted
It's the same thing, but thicker.
And flavor-wise, taste-wise?
It depends what flavour that you eat. But the barbecue one was very nice.
Okay. Well, can we talk about rugby now? I mean, we spent now, 17 minutes talking about Biltong and then podcasts. Sorry, people. I promise we'll get to the rugby just now. The interesting thing about round one of the Six Nations, and that it's the arrival of something new. I mean, the sands are shifting, if I can use a metaphor. England and France head and shoulders above the rest. France a little bit more, I think, ahead of England at the moment for me, I would think. Thriving a little bit. Chaos now seems to be the new thing. See, one of the comments we got was how France now thrives in chaos. England being very organized, almost, I said, metronomical to a degree, but not really tested against Wales. And we'll see this weekend how they do against Scotland. Ireland, to me, would slip behind Italy on the form of last weekend and last weekend only. I'm not talking about anything bigger than what happened last weekend. That's why, to me, Italy versus Ireland, or Ireland versus Italy this weekend is quite an important game. I think one of those two is going to move up or move down. But for now, Italy is ahead of Ireland for me. And then obviously Scotland, flattering to deceive. Again, we talked to Franco about that. Watch out for that video. You'll be interested to hear what he says. And then Wales is woeful. I like saying that Wales is woeful. I like the alliteration, but it also hits the spot. What do you think of my ranking?
That sounds about right to me. I definitely think that France have got better players than England. I don't agree with chaos. This is something I spoke about in my France kind of deep dive video, which has gotten a load of views recently as well, which is nice. I think that France, it's about space. It's getting the ball to space, and it doesn't. The thought process is, it doesn't matter how the ball gets to space, as long as it gets there. Which is why you see volleys. Which is why you see balls that look like they've maybe been dropped, or they get batted, or they get whatever, or they go, kicking it backwards or something. It's not chaos. It's space, and you see someone like Louis Bielbiaré, is always in the space. He never goes to the ball. He always waits for the ball to come to him, and because he's in the space. So that's what. Next time you see a French person do something odd, just watch where the ball ends up, and I promise you, it will end up in space.
Now, I see people are saying that England is copying South Africa's style. Any truth to that, do you think?
No, not at the moment. In the past, yes, very much so. I've on previous podcasts said that England are South Africa 2 years ago, but at the moment, I think that they're really high aerial contest game. I mean, it's obviously something that the Springboks can and have done. I'm not saying that the Springboks have never done that, but I think England have taken it to another level of this is what we do. You know, George Ford was 20 meters short of kicking the ball for 1 kilometer against Wales.
Yes. Wow. How many kicks was that?
26. The next highest kicker was 19.
Yes, that's incredible. All right, and then Scotland, what do you think went wrong there? I mean, they chased the game. I think that probably, and then the weather deteriorated, and they were sort of left almost in no man's land, I suppose. If it was a different start, a different weather, they might have pulled it off, don't you think so?
I think in different weather it would have been a very different game, and I don't think that's particularly controversial to say. Like I said on the review that we did, the reaction that we did, the fact that it absolutely hammered it down with rain was a much bigger impact on the game than, you know, whatever pass a 10 decided to throw when he starts a play off the line out. The thing is that Scotland had something like 220 odds, 220, 230 carries with 0 line breaks, depending on which stats provider you do. So just as a slight off tangent, I've seen the weekend's stats from 3 different stats providers this weekend. None of them agree on anything. So some of them say that Scotland did make a line break. Some of them say that they didn't. But either way, 220 to 30 odd carries with 1 line break. It's pretty rubbish. It's kind of like, what are you,
Regardless of the
what are you
weather.
trying to do? So, yes. So that my point is kind of, what is a Gregor Townsend coach team if not sexy backs moves? And there were none of them. So it really feels like. And did Franco tell you whether he's taken over in Scotland?
You'll have to watch the video.
Ah,
I'll tell you off air.
okay.
Yeah. So interesting. Make sure you watch that Lekker Rugby Pod episode, people. I'm not being funny. It's very, very good. And actually very, very interesting as well. Now, okay, let's talk about Ireland. And what
If this was my first experience of Biltong, I wouldn't come back for more. It is really quite bland.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I wouldn't eat that either. Coming back to Italy versus Ireland now, not the game coming up. What happened last weekend? Italy a year or two ago would have found a way to lose that game against Scotland, and they've changed. I mean, something changed there. That's now more senior players, are very experienced. One of the things Franco said was Italy's probably got one of the most capped teams now in Six Nations at the moment, most experienced teams, and that does make a difference. And I asked him straight out whether that's due to what stuff that he put into place when he was there, and he sort of neatly sidestepped the question, doesn't want to take any credit, or typical humble man that he is. But anyway, so what I'm saying, Italy for me took a step up. Maybe they beat Scotland last year as well, but the point is, something to me has changed, and Scotland took a step back. And the thing that irritated me the most, I'm a South African. I don't have a horse in the race, but like I said, Scotland is sort of my adopted team because of all the South Africans playing there, the South African coaches involved there. Gregor Townsend just looked completely disinterested in that game, and I don't like that. What do you think of that?
It's interesting that because Glasgow are doing so well, it's not only the fans who are watching and directly comparing Franco to Tooney as he's known now. It's not just the us and the media who are comparing and contrasting the two and asking which one's better. Because that squad is mostly Glasgow, or at least the starting team is, the players are doing it as well. Every training session, the players at the end of it are thinking, Franco wouldn't have done it like that. Any players who have kind of come through the Glasgow system, mostly played for Glasgow, any new caps that come from Glasgow going from Franco to Gregor Townsend are going to be comparing what's different from Gregor to Franco. And by all accounts, the players really, really love Franco at Glasgow. They're big fans of him. So there's that kind of comparison as well. And if we are all right in our theory, which feels like it's the consensus of opinion everywhere at the moment, that Franco Smith is a better coach than Gregor Townsend, seems to be the popular opinion, prevailing zeitgeist, then the players have probably noticed that as well. The players are probably getting towards the end of the day, sat in their rooms thinking, it's just not as good. It's just not as good. So they would never admit to that. None of them would ever say it out loud publicly, obviously. They might murmur it to each other, like in the car to and from training and things, but it's in everyone's mind now. It's in everyone's mind now. So Yeah, and going back to Italy, would they have won or lost? Italy do seem to have developed the knack of winning tight games, and this is something I spoke to an Italian podcaster about. Was if you look at their victories, the win over Wales, their win over Australia, their win over Scotland now, it's not like 36-33. It's not like 40-25. It's 18-15, 22-18, low scoring games. When they beat Wales, which up until that point was one of the worst Wales performances I'd ever seen. Now it's probably, top 10 of the last 2 years. But a low scoring game. They didn't thrash Wales in that game. They scored a couple of tries early and kicked goals. So there's still a level of progression to come there for Italy, that's why I said, even if they get 50 put on them by Ireland at the weekend, if they score 4 tries in that game, for me, that would represent progress for Italy because they've not been a free scoring team. I think they scored a few against England last year. But like I said, when they win games, it tends to be low scoring games. Remember against the Springboks last in November when it was they played against 13 men for however long, 14 men for the majority of the match at home, and it was a rotated Springbok squad, scored 1 try. So
true.
That's still something for Italy to bring on. They seem to be a defense first, attack later team, which tends to be how most good teams develop, is a defense first, attack second. But it remains a point of progression for Italy to be able to win games by scoring 3, 4, 5 tries.
Well, you mentioned against Wales, they scored a couple of early tries and then a couple took penalties. They did the same thing against Scotland. Struck early. I mean, for a defensive-oriented team, that won them the game, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's what I'm saying. They're getting the noses in front in the tight games. The next progression is for them to win games comfortably.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Are you wearing that purple shirt of yours in sympathy with the atrocious away kit that Scotland sported over the weekend, or was it just by accident?
No, it's just by accident, I'm afraid. I actually don't mind that kit, but the thing is, because Scotland are supplied by Macron, and Macron do a lot of, I think Macron are the biggest kit supplier in rugby at the moment. If you have to keep an eye out for what else is, because I think there's 2 other teams that Macron supply that have the same color. So
that purple.
Yeah. So I think it's like
no.
They've paid for the dye, so they got to use it up.
I wish I could pay it off now and get it out of there because it looks horrible. I mean, really. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, man. You notice that now. I don't like Sweet Caroline, ringing out over the stadiums worldwide. I like a typical white away shirt for the Boks, like they've been going back to now. Not this checker 60-60 thing that they had before. I don't like that. That's not what I am. Let's talk about Woeful Wales. Just quickly, I saw a post
Again?
somewhere. No, I saw a post somewhere, and you're promising me to talk about them later. They mentioned quite a few prominent Wales players, and I'm not a Wales expert by any stretch of the imagination, but they talk about Rio Dyer and players like that. Why aren't they being selected? What's the story there?
So this is a fundamental debate in Welsh rugby at the moment. Is who are you bringing in to improve it? And it does seem like it has started turning a little bit in the last week, because I have seen a couple of journalists, not all of them. I've still seen journalists saying, "Oh, it can't get any better. This is the best players that we have. This is the best coaching that we have." But I've seen a few people start to go, "Oh, hang on a second. It shouldn't be that bad, surely." And I think in the case of Rio Dyer, I think he's definitely playing well enough to get in the squad. I think probably the one I'd pick him over would be Hamer Webb, who plays for Leicester. I think the media has made that selection over Steve Tandy, to be honest. So this is something that really annoys me about Welsh rugby, is that anyone who plays in England is assumed to be a better player than anyone who plays in Wales, which is fundamentally untrue. So I think Rio Dyer should be in over him, in my opinion.
Where does he play, by the way, Rio Dyer?
Rio Dyer plays for the Dragons.
Oh, he's local. Okay, it's not overseas,
Yeah.
or France or anything.
No. He plays for the Dragons in Newport. So, but coming back to what I was saying, is that I do think that there's a lot of Welsh fans who are, when they're saying who should come into the team, they go, this guy, and it will normally be an England-based player. Like a lot of people are demanding Tom Francis. Now, it happens to be my opinion, as I think probably people who watch my Wales rants understand now, is that I do think that Tom Francis would be a better option than Archie Griffin. But Tom Francis, no one has seen Tom Francis play in the last 2 years. You know how I know? Because he's been playing in the Pro D2, the second division of the France league. No one in Wales watches that league. You know, you're probably counting on probably less than 20 people in the whole country have gone out of their way to watch that. You know, so it's all very people who, the players who no one has watched, people saying, oh yeah, get him in, he'll solve it. Like, no, he won't. Like, he's not particularly better. However, of course, you know, everyone has an opinion on selection. I do think that there are better selections that could be made. And I do think some of it is just change for the sake of change. So I'm kind of, you know, sitting on the fence here. I'm like, it won't be that much better no matter who you bring in. I'm more about combinations, and I'm more about players who we've seen them for a long time now in a Wales jersey, and it's just not working, and it's time to give someone else a try, in my opinion.
No pun intended. They need a try here or there.
Yeah, we need a try. You know, penalty try's been like our top try scorer for the last 2 years.
I mean, a captain like Dowie Lake, and note my pronunciation there. I've been taught properly by you. It's not Dewey, it's Dowie. Not not tapping and a tap and go. That's just basic rugby IQ. I mean, that's one of the reasons Damien Penaud was probably left out, because he doesn't know the rules for France, for example.
Yeah, Debbie Lake has got a couple of things like that. Look, not tapping was something that referees were letting teams get away with a couple of years ago, and it really, really wound me up that the Scarlets had at least 3 or 4 tries scored against them where the team didn't tap it. It was normally an Irish team didn't tap it and scored. The rule is, because it happened so much that we bothered looking up the exact wording of the rule, right? The rule is that the ball has to visibly move. So it's not just like on the balance of probability, it is likely that his toe has at least grazed the ball. It's like, no, the ball has to visibly, obviously move from being tapped before you can play on. And like I said, referees were letting teams get away with it lately a couple of years ago, and they've clamped down on it lately. And the other thing with Derry Lake is that his throwing technique for lineouts, he does a lot of this, a bit like a darts player. You know how darts players like go like that. Derry Lake goes like that a lot, and he gets pinged for dummy throws, probably less than he should. I think sometimes referees have a bit of sympathy of like, oh, that's just his technique, but he does get pinged for dummy throws for that technique. So I don't know. I feel like a coach needs to get hold of him and say, bro, stop doing that. Just put it behind your head and throw it. And
Penaud, is that why he was dropped, do you think?
Yeah, probably. And also defensively, you know, it's someone else's job.
He's one of those. He would have fit so well in the Stormers jersey.
Yes, he would be the Stormers would probably play him at fullback.
Listen, you have to stop moving around because your camera goes out of focus. You're completely out of focus at the moment.
Right.
There we go. You move around so much, the camera can't keep up.
You know, it's been doing that lately. I'm sorry.
Looking at this weekend, we thought when Harry and I started planning this Six Nations coverage of ours, we said we picked a game of the weekend, and this coming weekend obviously is going to be Scotland versus England. But after last week's woeful Ireland performance and plucky Italian performance, I think Italy versus Ireland or Ireland versus Italy, I keep switching them around. That's probably going to be a game to watch out for. I mean, I'm looking forward to that one. We talked about it a little bit, but what are you expecting? Ireland to come back roaring? Italy maybe proving a point or two? Or was it a flash in the pan for both of those teams? Ireland was just caught out a bit unawares, but they're definitely not out for the count yet. And Italy maybe flattering to deceive.
Italy have to back it up because I think last year in the Six Nations they beat Wales and then they took 70 off France. So
I remember.
They have to back it up. They have to show that there's consistency there. Like I said, if they can score tries, then I think that shows progress. With Ireland, it's all about the selection because Ireland, I can't remember whether I said this on this show already because it's been like a week since the game and I've done about 4 podcasts since. So I can't remember what I've said on what show.
Same, yeah.
But with Ireland, it's one of those no-win situations where if they put 50 on them, it's like, oh, it's Italy. And if they just scrape it, They're like, oh, you're only scraping wins against Italy now. So there's no win. The only way that Ireland can salvage some value and some respect from this game is if they rotate, if they try different combinations, if they give players a chance. Now, that could still backfire because if it goes well, then everyone's just going to say, cool, well done for doing this, but you should have done it 2 years ago. This is what we've been asking you to do for 2 seasons, and you've only just done it. You've left yourself short. There's not enough time left now before the next World Cup to really maximize this if you buy into the building for a World Cup methodology. So that's how Ireland can salvage some value from this game, is by heavily rotating. Now, I watched an Irish podcast earlier, and they suggested that they don't think that's what's going to happen. They expect that Farrell will basically pick the same team again, which will be a bit of a shame if they do that. So that's it. I can foresee it being quite a boring game, to be honest. I think if you go off history, Italy will underwhelm and Ireland will win comfortably, playing slightly dull rugby.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. Italy 2 years ago would have found a way to lose that game against Scotland. I want to see if that newfound maturity, carries over. This would be interesting. I'm looking forward to that. I'm just interested to see who would you change in Ireland. Sam Prendergast, for example, bringing Jacques. Who would you change?
I'm glad you asked me that, because I was thinking about this earlier. The thing with Sam Prendergast now is you can't drop him. If Sam Prendergast ever gets dropped by Ireland, say before the age of 32 or something, which is 10 years away, by the way, then the narrative will be that they broke him. Then the narrative will be they brought this guy in too early, chucked him in the deep end, and let him drown. And so if, like, in 2 seasons he gets dropped from the squad, that will be on Farrell. People will be saying, you broke this guy, because the hype about Sam Prendergast goes back a long way. I spoke to a guy who coached him at under 18s, and he said that after one training session, he was getting phone calls from people at the IRFU saying, tell us about this guy. How did he get on? What's your thoughts on him? So if they just discard him, I've just thought maybe mustard flavored Biltong might be nice. We should look into that.
Are you slightly attention deficit, whatever, deficient?
It just popped into my head. I just thought there was something in my mouth went mustard. Dijon mustard. So yes, so they can't just throw Prendergast away. They can't discard him. I've seen a lot of people asking for Harry Byrne. I don't see that. I feel like I've seen this movie before, Harry Byrne being the flavour of the month. I think if Harry Byrne was going to be the guy for Ireland, we'd have more evidence of that by now, in my opinion. So they can do it where they kind of bring Crowley in and kind of rotate them a bit. I've spoken to someone who said, like, I don't see why we have to have the guy at 10. Why can't we have more than 1 10 and we play both of them? Razzie does it with 3 of them. Well, kind of from last year, it was only really 2 of them. But anyway, but they can't just get rid of Prendergast. And, it's almost gotten to the point now. I actually looked up Sam Prendergast's minutes that he's played in his career. Sam Prendergast has less than 3,000 professional minutes in his career. Now, he's only 22. But if you compare him to Sasha, who's the same age, Sasha's got 3,300. And you think about how many injuries Sasha has had that has curtailed his minutes. Yeah. So Sasha's got more than 10% more. And even Dan Edwards, the Wales fly half, is a year younger than Prendergast. And he's got 10% more minutes as well. So you've got a young 10 who is being developed with not as many minutes as his contemporaries. Normally, what would be happening with a player that age who is being developed is they would be playing week in, week out for their club side, and they wouldn't be so much playing for the national team. But with Sam Prendergast, what's happened is he's been thrown into Ireland super early, and what that means is his club minutes are being managed. So he isn't playing as much for Leinster. But then what that means is because there's not as many minutes internationally, the number of minutes that he's getting are all really hard minutes and not as many of them. So the only way to get out of this with Prendergast, basically, is what I'm saying, is you just got to keep playing him. That's the only way to get through it now at this point.
Yeah, what do you mean? Okay, so you broke him. So accept that fact and move on. Rather than have 10 dismal years for the national team trying to protect a mistake that you made 10 years ago. I mean, that's what I would think. And you're
is
talking
there
about
genuinely someone better? Like Crowley is the only one who you can say is definitely.
And Frawley? What's happened to him? I mean,
No, no,
remember
no.
he kicked that bloody drop goal.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the,
yeah. No, you South Africans. Someone does something against you, and you
and we
that's
carry a
them for
grudge for
that's them
ages.
forever. It's like Jalibert scuffed a kick in that quarter final, and people said, "Ah, he's the guy who scuffed the kick," even though he's clearly the most talented 10 in Europe, if not the world, at the moment.
Can I
So,
ask you this? So I interrupt you. But what I didn't know was that Dan Edwards, for example, is a year younger than Sam Prendergast. Sasha is more or less the same age. So age can't be the determining factor here. They both look quite comfortable where they are. Sasha especially, that guy just looks like he's always meant to play there, especially for the Springboks. So the question mark's not so much about Sam Prendergast being too young. It's about Sam Prendergast. Is he actually the right player? Does he have what it takes to be that number 10, Johnny Sexton's successor kind of a thing?
well, Johnny Sexton wasn't an immediate hit when he started playing for Ireland. He took a while to get going as well, and his defense wasn't always thought of as being great. Maybe not quite to the problem that it's been for Sam Prendergast. Um, Everyone who's ever coached Sam Prendergast seems to think that he's the guy.
Hmm.
So they can't all be wrong, you would have thought. And I do think that I think in attack against France, he was their best attacking player, in my opinion. It's only really
Defense.
that one deficit in his game is the defense, is the problem. And I spoke to Andre Pretorius about this on my channel a year ago. And Andre Pretorius was saying the problem is his height change timing is wrong. He's dipping too early. So when someone's running at him, he's dipping too early, and then the guy who's running at him has got the chance to make a decision about how he's going to run at him and then win that collision. And what Andre said was that he needs to dip later, change the picture for the attacking player, and then that's how you win that collision.
That is a coaching thing. That's a training thing.
Yeah, but again, I'd struggle to believe that there's no coach in Ireland who hasn't had the same thoughts.
And he plays with
So,
Jacques Nienaber, by the way, as a
yeah,
defensive coach.
exactly. So,
Uh,
I will say though, actually, I was looking at the numbers against France. Prendergast was forced into making 20 tackles, and I deliberately choose that turn of phrase. It wasn't that he was running around the pitch looking for people to tackle; that he got ran at 20 times.
they were
For
looking for him.
Leinster, yeah, for Leinster, he's only averaging 4 or 5 tackles a match. So clearly, there's something different there. Now, is it that Leinster are just a far more dominant team, dominate possession much more, and he's required to make fewer tackles? Or has Jacques managed to find a way of masking Prendergast's weakness that Ireland haven't? Or is it just simply a case of club rugby versus test rugby? Test rugby, the better teams find your weaknesses and exploit them far better at club level. That's the question.
Well, we talked about that Jacques Nienaber issue. Lots of former Irish players and pundits saying that Jacques Nienaber is the root cause of all the problems that Ireland's experiencing at the moment. And I know I've been taken on by some Irish supporters and commenters about my perceived bias, which is not true. I was just interested to know why they would say that. Do you agree with that? Is there any, I mean, the step and the change between club rugby and national rugby, there is a step, and there's just different systems and different coaches and everything else. But Leinster is actually playing a completely different game to what the national side is playing, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think Jacques Nienaber has a role to play in the way that Ireland's performing at the moment?
Ask me who pays Jacques Nienaber's wages.
Who pays Jacques Nienaber's wages?
The IRFU.
Okay.
They own Leinster. They own all of the provinces. They ultimately appoint all of the coaches. So, no. No. How can an assistant coach for one province be the reason that the national team is like what? If that's the case, what the heck are the assistant coaches for the national team doing? You know, like what they can't undo all of the evil that Jacques Nienaber has done. You know, these incredibly highly paid, elite level, supposedly assistant coaches, they're being undone by one assistant coach at a club. It's excuses.
Yeah, why would they say that? Is that just looking for a
Because he's not one of
scapegoat?
them. Because he's not one of them.
All
He's an
right.
outsider.
Okay, so that's all right. Thank you. Thank you for that. That didn't come from my mouth. I was just asking the question. Thank you for your honesty.
What's different about him to all the rest?
Exactly. No, I agree with you 100%. I just wanted to know why they were thinking that. Right, let's move on quickly. England versus Scotland. Scotland versus England at Murrayfield. I asked Frank Smith about the Lone Piper, and he told me a little interesting tale about the second verse having no music, for example, Flower of Scotland, where that comes from. Do you know that story?
I know that it's a cappella.
Yeah, but you know why?
No.
Watch the like a rugby pod tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
He told us so many interesting things, man. I can't wait for people to see that as well. So talk to me about that game. Scotland, I think, on the back foot. I honestly believe that Scotland should just make a change now and get it over and done with. The World Cup is just around the corner. It's next year, for goodness sake. It's not just in another couple of years. It's right next year. It's one of these days. There's one Six Nations in between. After this one, there's a Nations Championship in between. And then it's, or two of them. And rather make the change now and get it over and done with. I'm not saying Franco should be the guy, but the point is Gregor Townsend is not working out, I don't think. Not anymore.
No, I don't think anybody would disagree. Flip the question around. How would Glasgow get on at the Rugby World Cup? Well, they would probably lose to Ireland in the pool stages, but they would probably still finish second in the pool because of the 2014 World Cup. And then I can't remember who they get in the round of 16. I can't remember, but it's kind of like they wouldn't, because of the Glasgow thing, it wouldn't be like starting from scratch. It wouldn't be starting from scratch. You could basically take Glasgow, put Finn Russell at 10, and away you go. That's basically probably good enough to get out of the pool stages at the Rugby World Cup. So, yeah, I agree. They probably should do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll talk about that a bit more. So what are you expecting from that game? Who's going to win it?
England should win it. All of the data that we have suggests that England should win it. All of the rugby that England have played lately is much better than the rugby that Scotland have played. But as I said on another one of the a million pods I've done in the last two, it feels like a month since that we last did our Loose Pass podcast. So much has happened in between.
It was a week ago, literally tonight.
I know. Yeah. It's whatever happens in that game, it's a talking point. If England win by loads, it's a talking point. If Scotland win, it's a massive talking point. If it's an amazing, thrilling game, then obviously it's a talking point. If it's a boring game, it's a talking point. Like it's a guaranteed talking point.
For us as podcasters, that's like manna from heaven. I mean, that's what we want to hear. Something to talk about. It's not like the most boring game you've ever seen. Okay, I'm looking forward to that one. And then, of course, Sunday, the drama will repeat. France versus Wales, Wales versus France. How badly is Wales going to lose this time?
If France don't win by 40, it's a failure for them. I was thinking, as a thought experiment, I was wondering where would Wales finish in the top 14? And I'm thinking maybe Cast. Could Wales beat Cast? So
where's Goss at the moment?
Kind of in and around the playoffs. So Wales will probably beat La Rochelle. La Rochelle aren't doing very well.
Yeah.
So I think Wales would probably be 5th or 6th in the top 14 at best. Now, actually,
it's not bad.
If they had all of their players and they played a whole season together, 26 matches together, they probably would get a lot better. So that probably would help. But anyway, it's just a thought experiment because, newsflash, Wales aren't going to play in the top 14. So the point is that France are the best of the top 14 players, so they should win by a lot. France's centre combination is apparently injured. In fact, no, we know that they are definitely injured. Moafana is out until May, and Deporté is out for the next 3 weeks. So what that means is they're going to have a completely new centre partnership. But apparently what they're going to do is they're going to bring in the Poe centre partnership of Braubury. So this is a new name that everyone's got to learn. This kid is 20 years old. I was kind of aware of him. I knew he was getting a lot of hype. But then I watched him, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's amazing. I think he was in the Bulls game, actually. If you go back and watch the game against the Bulls, obviously Poe lost. But he played very well in that game. I think he scored a try, maybe even 2, need to be reminded. And then they talked about having Guy Yaton, who is his club centre partner, next to him. Now, let me just put it to you in car terms, and I can see you've got your Ferraris behind you. Going from the UBB centre partnership to the Poe partnership is like your Ferrari breaking down, so you have to use your Aston Martin instead. It's like, oh no. Oh well. Like just it's
Mm.
still pretty good.
Define how good Aston Martin. If you use the
Well, I'm
Porsche
not talking in
analogy,
Formula One terms. I'm talking in like road car terms. It's
okay.
like it's not a hard ship, is what I'm
No, I
saying.
understand. I'm with you. I'm pulling your leg. I understand. All right. I want to talk to you about David Creel quickly and some of those
The guy who
players.
you call slow on this podcast.
Allegedly. I don't know. Did I? I can't remember. I spoke to Franco and I asked him, Franco, what's the story with David Creel? And he says, Envia, the only way David Creel is ever going to play for the Springboks is if starts playing against South African teams. And here's something you didn't know. David Creel and his twin brother, Richard Creel, played with Franco's sons from grade 8 at school.
Yeah,
He knows him intimately, personally. So
there you go. It's not what you know, it's who you know, isn't it?
exactly. And that's quite an interesting one because there's a lot of voices going up here in Pretoria to say that David should be picked at 15, fullback, because that's where he was playing for the under 19s juniors, Springbok juniors. He became a centre and a wing at the Bulls. He's actually a 15. What do you think of that?
I keep coming back to this. Like 2 seasons ago in the URC, he had the most try involvements of any player, and that was as a centre. Why are we trying to fix something that isn't broken? I don't see how David Creel is the problem for the Bulls. So I think there's other things that they need to
No,
fix.
no, no. In that sense, the reason why I talk about 15 is we don't have a problem with David Creel. We have a problem at 15. How do we solve the problem at 15? That's what
I
we're
think you
getting at.
need to.
What Warwick
I
Land.
think you need to tell Willie LaRue to pull his socks up. I think that's how you. Yeah, that's how you
Yeah, but
fix
the
that.
Willie's going
Needs
to
to be
come
careful
after us. Yeah.
because he's going to come after us.
On-
What was the thing that you said to Harry? That you said it was in Afrikaans. It had the word Boat in there
to
about Willie
Harry.
LaRue.
I can't remember. Remind me.
Harry said something along the lines of Billy LaRue goes to the bar or something like that, and then you said something Boat. It sounded like a steady on mate or something like that.
Oh, no, I can't remember. I would have. I can't remember right now. Anyway, talking of which, I forgot the Afrikaans word for this week. But I mean, people are so impressed with your use of Afrikaans. I think you've graduated from the MVA University of Afrikaans.
I told you I'm already fluent.
Yeah,
Really,
well,
Gutvol and Gutskop is the only ones that I really
but
remember.
I
And
think I
Skelling.
think I think after your impromptu impersonation of my woeful Afrikaans accent, English accent, say something in an Afrikaans accent tonight. Let's rather leave the word, but say it like a South
No,
African.
no, I
Come
don't want
on.
to.
No, you
No.
have to. You have to. I'm
What should I?
sorry.
No, I can't. No.
Just say something like along the lines that,
No, I've already
yo,
done it.
no, I want you to do it again. This is your punishment for making fun of me. Come on.
No, I can't think of anything to say now.
Just say, I hope Wales doesn't lose as badly this weekend.
No, I've got one of my friends does a South African accent joke. He goes, "Mate, you got to make sure that you got plenty of arse to put in your drink, plenty of arse."
Oh, yeah, okay, fine, thank you. My wife always, when I speak Afrikaans, I grew up in Pretoria, I say ma and pa rather than ma and pa, mum and dad. Because you can clearly hear where someone's from in South Africa from the way they talk.
I can
Different.
recognize a Durban accent. I don't really know what someone from Cape Town sounds like.
Posh.
Kind of more English then.
Depends. If it's from the southern suburbs, they sound very posh. If it's from the northern suburbs, they sound more Afrikaans. If it's from
This doesn't help me at all, Ember.
no, I'm telling you, it's like a little cosmopolitan. And then you obviously get the flats kind of an accent, and no, that's actually quite a good thing. We should get some of those Cape Townians on there. Those are good guys. So interesting to talk to. One of my best friends is Angus Opperman. He writes for Rugby 365. Yeah, having on
So
as
I
a
can tell a
guest.
Durban accent. I'm not quite so sure about kind of Bloemfontein versus Pretoria. Like, because Razzie's Free State, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I
So
tell you
I
what.
can,
Can I tell you what? If you listen to
yeah.
Franco tomorrow night, you'll know what a Bloemfontein accent sounds like.
Right, I'll have to compare you two, because to me they sound quite similar.
No,
Okay.
a Bloemfontein accent sounds like the rugby in Bloemfontein is very much the same as it is in Pretoria. That's all.
That's kind of how Rian Lowe speaks.
Yeah, I
But
suppose
he's from
so.
Joburg.
Yeah, he's
It's
a
not a Joburg
Joburg.
accent.
No. Joburg is not like Joburg is almost, I think, flatter almost. You remember Pretoria is mostly Afrikaans, and then of course you've got the West Coast, Cape Town. They I don't know what you call it in English. In Afrikaans, it's called Berei. So they would say the rugby in Pretoria is that's that's a completely different accent again. So anyway, but I'm probably going to get so much flack for this now. Sorry, people. We're just having fun, yeah.
It's
No
from a
no
place of
offense
love.
intended. Sorry.
It's from a place of love.
Yeah, I'm proud of this nation of mine and everything
Hmm.
we are and everything we stand for. I'm very proud of it. So, just briefly on those player movements, Gertly Arendse going to Japan now. I knew he was going to do. He told me so. They ran into him. Remember, they forced him to come back. They
Yeah.
should never have let him
They
go. But I
forced him to
can
come back because he'd signed a contract to do so.
no, I understand that. But I should never have let him go. It's bad for the Bulls, but I think it's the best thing for Gertly. You know, a rugby player only has so much time to play and earn money and everything else. And the money that he earned more money. He earned more money in 4 months in Japan than he earned at the Bulls for a year. So
Well, that'll do it.
I would have gone.
Can I speculate on something?
Yes.
So obviously we've seen Avicii Diamani. Oh, I'm probably saying that wrong, aren't I? How do you say his name?
No, it's fine. Achieva.
Achieva Diamani is going back to the Stormers.
Mm.
Um, and it's been announced by Racing that he's leaving. And so that means that Stormers back row now is going to be Ruas Sia, Evan Ruas, Sia Kolisi, and Hachiva Diamani. And obviously you've got Ben Jason Dixon and what's his name?
Paul de Villiers.
Guy, yeah, before the Villiers.
And Roy Ackerman's injured, long-term injury.
That's not the most heavyweight back row ever. I think obviously Ben Jason Dixon is a big lump, but most of those guys are kind of speed oversize, aren't they? Is that fair to say?
No,
So that's
definitely.
interesting. So would it be fair to say that the Stormers are lacking a lock?
They've got big problems with lock. Ruben van Heerden is injured and he's leaving. He's going to Montpellier. Who's the other? Salman Murat is still injured. So
Turf
yeah,
toe.
sorry,
Turf toe.
turf toe. Yes. Yeah. So I know they're running low on. So actually, I think Ben Jason Dixon might be playing lock for a bit, from what I've heard. I'm
Oof.
hoping.
Anyway, so here's my speculation.
Mm.
Mark Nwangawituase has
I saw-
signed for Saitama Wild Knights in Japan. And the rules in Japan is there's a limit on how many in your match day 23 can be foreign capped players. There can only be 3. Sorry, I've got a Biltong.
Biltong. I knew it. I was waiting for this.
Wild Knights will now have 6 like foreign capped players on their books because they'll have Mark Nwangawituase, Damien Dialende, Cora Betty. You remember Cora Betty? He used to play for the Wallabies.
Kane Moody. Remember? He
Is
was
Moody
waiting
gone,
to.
man?
No, he was waiting to catch the ball for Australia,
Oh,
and then
right.
Kane Moody snatched it from out his. Remember, and scored a try from there. I'll never
Yeah.
forget that. Yeah.
I can't remember the other ones now. They got 2 others. I think they've got an Aussie. They used to have Hadley Parks. He's retired. And another one. Anyway, the point is that they've got too many. But the one that is on their books but is currently deregistered because he's injured is Lou Diaga. Now, if Wild Knights are looking, hey, we don't need 6 international qualified players in our squad. Wild Knights are top of the league currently, I think, at the moment. They're probably the best team in Japan over the last couple of years. They keep losing to Brave Lupus in the final because of Richie Mwanga. But very, very good team. Could Luke Diaga potentially be on the market? And if so, would he be a smart pickup for the Stormers?
And of course, in the same breath, Damien Dialende.
Damien Dialende wants to go to the Stormers, and we know this much.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Isn't it Wild Knights coach Robbie Deans?
Maybe.
If I remember correctly, I think he's the coach there. I might be wrong, but I think so. I think that's what Damien Dialende told us when he remember when they were going to play against Australia, the game we lost again, Alice Park, he was saying that Robbie Deans gave them a lot of advice, and they were talking about, obviously,
Agent Robbie Deans.
yeah, talking about Trojan horses, no? So there we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, right. For another rugby podcast about nothing, this took quite a while. So exactly an
Yeah,
hour.
we're getting good at this, talking about nothing.
Yeah, I think so. We're like Jerry Seinfeld, man. The show about nothing. So there you go. Awesome, man. Thanks, you. It's always a pleasure. I love talking to you. And we're
Cool,
going to
mate.
be doing an instant reaction this weekend. We're just not sure which one yet, but watch out for those. We like getting you on with these very succinct and emotional responses. Thank you, man.
No worries.
Thanks.
This is the Loose Pass Rugby podcast, only on Megaphone Rugby.